Okay, ready?
Ready.
Okay. Hi. We have been really wanting to talk about this for a while now. It's been going on behind the scenes for us for years, even before I started this channel. And it's been something we've been really struggling with for this whole time. We didn't have all the words to explain what it was and all the information, but recently we received more information and more support from healthcare professionals. And it's at the point where we really want to be able to talk about it. It's still really raw. It's still really emotional and new. But it's really important to me that I show up in my videos, on my channel, authentically when it feels right and when I feel ready. And right now feels like the right time to tell you this major thing that's been going on behind the scenes for us. So if you don't know me and you're new here, my name's Krista. This is my husband, Brian.
Hey.
We converted our van that we're sitting in here back in 2020, 2021. And then we've been on the road traveling for the most part ever since. And we're currently in Bulgaria. And we've been in Europe on and off. Like we went home and came back for just over a year now. And we had plans to keep going and stay here in Bulgaria for longer. But a couple weeks ago, we finally received a mental health diagnosis for Brian. We've talked a little bit, like I've mentioned it in some of the videos. Brian's mentioned it back when he was on this channel more, that he has been struggling with his mental health for a while. And I think we were in a little bit of denial, maybe Brian a little bit more so than me, because
I was definitely in denial. I had, for years now, I've sensed that something is wrong, but I haven't either had the vocabulary, the understanding, or the compassion to myself to admit that there's something wrong and that I need help. And so I've been trying to piecemeal help together. And now we have an actual diagnosis that's helping me and you and us understand what's going on and then what we can do to help me overcome this.
Yeah. So Brian's diagnosis that he got about 2 weeks ago now, maybe 3 weeks ago, is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And it was a process. Like we started the process of getting the diagnosis like 7 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
It's really, like you're saying, it's been really helpful for us to now have a framework of understanding of what we've been dealing with. And I say we because yes, it's Brian that has PTSD. And for a really long time, I was in denial that like it was or could be affecting me because I just didn't want to take away from Brian's experience. Like I didn't want to say, yeah, this is really hard for me because I know it's harder for him. But the reality of the situation, especially with PTSD, but with so many mental health diagnoses, is it does affect me because I live with him and I'm married to him. And we are living right now in a very small space, this little van. And so I think I finally got to the point where I could really say out loud how hard it's also been for me and not have that take away from Brian's experience.
Yeah, and I think I want to say that it was really amazing that Krista was able to communicate that things aren't going well, because had she just kept going, it would have meant that my condition would have maybe been pushed farther down the road of like not dealing with it. And you were kind of in a sense like the canary in the coal mine. Like you could see how bad it was, and I couldn't necessarily see it myself. Like I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't necessarily understand it. So you explaining how it's impacting you has really helped. Yeah, that's been a really good play. And I guess the other thing I should say is that I've received a formal diagnosis now from a psychologist, but I've been working with a counselor, and I think the counselor has helped me be able to reach a point where I could be compassionate enough to be able to hear that you're not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I actually heard you say that, I had the compassion to then say, we need to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a few years ago, I would have just dismissed it and said, well, you just got to try harder, or like work harder, or just ignore it, or ignore your feelings. But now I've spent almost 2 years with a counselor to learn this skill set of compassion and then be able to listen to you, because you communicated the things that I was feeling but couldn't say.
Yeah. And it's really good that, yeah, you're at the point where I think, yeah, you're fully seeing the reality of our situation and of your health.
I told my friend that it feels like I finally reached the point where I'm beyond denial. Like for years it's been denial, and now finally at the point where I can call a spade and say things aren't going well and we need to do something. I need to access as many resources as I can to resolve this, because it's not going to go away. And it's not going to go away by itself. I have to work through this and I have to seek help. And so that's what we're going to do now. Yeah.
So of course, like the counseling has been so helpful and you've made steps in the right direction. But we came to the realization a few days ago that further support is required. We're at a point where what we're doing right now and what Brian's able to access while we're living this way is just not sufficient for the healing that he needs to, the healing journey that you need to be on. So that means we're having to make changes in our lives. And we've decided that means we're going to go back to Canada for a while, and we haven't made any specific plans about how long or anything like that, because we understand that healing from PTSD can look different for everyone, and there's no timeline that we know for sure he's going to feel better by or better enough to come back to the van. And one aspect of being in the van is that I started to feel like I didn't have enough support as his caregiver. And, I couldn't just pop over to a friend or family member's place and just hang out with them for a little bit and get that sort of community support that I actually think that I need, that I wasn't really recognizing that I also needed. We're hoping, so the plan with the van is we'll leave it here, actually where we're at. In Bulgaria, there's this long-term parking we can leave it at where it's secure. So we'll just winterize it, get rid of the food and pack it up. And we're able to leave it here for another, I think, 3 months or so. And then we'll figure out what we're going to do. We might come back and move the van to a new country together. I might do that on my own. We have not figured that out yet, but we have options, and we're happy with this location that we're at to leave the van. And then we're not sure when or if we'll come back and keep trying to drive as far east as we can. That is our dream, is to drive across to Asia. And we'll just see how things go. It really depends on how all of your healing goes and what even feels right once you've gone through that journey.
Yep.
More.
I just thought about something.
Yeah.
I just realized that in this year we've crossed the continent of Europe.
That's very cool.
And so the next country would be starting our journey into Asia.
Yeah.
So it's and in some ways there's sort of a romantic ending to that we've reached the end of this continent.
Yeah, that's true. And so if you have been following us, you'll know last video we did that really amazing ski trip together, and we needed a break at that point from Brian's ski and hike across Bulgaria. But that was right around the time when we got the diagnosis. So there was a lot going on for us behind the scenes, like processing the diagnosis, figuring out what supports Brian could access, figuring out what felt good, like all these like aha moments and realizations of, oh, that makes sense now. Now that we know it's PTSD, that behavior pattern makes sense. It makes sense that every single day, behind the scenes again, like I haven't really put this in our videos, but every single day has felt like a struggle. It's felt like there's been a lot of resistance, a lot of fear and anxiety. And that really links to like one of the big symptoms that Brian has is hypervigilance. So instead of focusing on just like the cool stuff and the fun, it's focusing on every potential thing that could go wrong or might be a risk or a danger. And I've noticed you would have seen it in my videos when I was supporting Brian with the van, like I'm getting more hypervigilant because I've been with Brian and he's saying these things and pointing them out, and I'm getting more and more scared and afraid to do things on my own. And I think that's when it's really started to hit for us, was like, oh, like this is such a big thing going on with us that it's starting to affect like how I feel about the world too.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's exhausting. Like there have been many days where we try to go do something like
simple,
go for a day hike, like drive to the trailhead park and hike, and like it just doesn't happen because there's just so many emotional barriers and breakdowns and fears and anxieties. And of course, like there's always going to be an aspect of that in life. Like no one's going to feel relaxed and happy all of the time, but it's to this really extreme heightened level that really has made trying to do anything enjoyable next to impossible. And I got to the point where I just started to like not even try to do anything. I'm like, I'll just wait and see if Brian can today or not. And yeah, it just has affected every day of our lives.
Yeah. Our threshold of resiliency is decreasing each day because we're getting more and more worn out by my hypervigilance.
Yeah, that's right. And we're both really tired. And there's a big aspect that we're learning of like our nervous systems are tired. Like Brian's is more so, and then mine is secondarily because of this hypervigilance and this, treating it like this technical, I don't know all the words yet. We're going to learn as we go here, but our nervous systems are fatigued. And one of our major goals is to get to a place in BC where we are comfortable and we feel safe, and we start to do things to calm our nervous systems down.
Yeah. I feel really glad that we're making this move to go heal before we actually hit like an absolute rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And our hands were forced. Like it's nice that right now it's a decision we're making to go back and to heal.
Yeah.
And that we're lucky that we have the resources and we're able to do that, and like that, community and everything that's going to be there for us. Yeah, I feel really lucky that we saw this and we're making moves right now. Even if it's been a really hard few years, it's way better than a few hard decades for us. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And yeah, the psychologist asked me to be really honest about like what I was actually doing for caregiving and how much I was actually putting band-aids over things just to keep the peace or to pretend like I'm okay because I don't want to add anything to Brian's plate because I knew he wasn't okay. And once he asked me to do that, that's when we started to really see the cracks more and see, oh, wow, like, yeah, I have been doing a lot that we were just so used to at that point.
Yep.
So him saying that was actually really helped us get to this point of understanding like, okay, we need to do a little bit more of a focused approach and put Brian in a situation where he can focus on some form of his like healing work every day.
Yeah.
And and yeah, just simplify our lives a little bit. One major reason why we wanted to talk about this too is that we have really isolated ourselves in this experience. Like, we have felt like we're the only people experiencing this, and it was so difficult and so hard. But the PTSD, like, has affected our relationship in a way that's like so insidious that it's so hard to kind of tease that apart from it being like just a relationship problem. And so for a long time, we saw it as like, oh, we're just having relationship conflict, but actually it was the PTSD. So there was this weird thing that was happening where we just didn't want to like open up about how hard our life had been. And because I don't know, there's like just, who knows, there's layers around it. But then once I spoke with one of my friends about it, and I was honest. I was like, it's been really, really difficult. And he was able to recommend a memoir to us, Jason Kander's memoir,
Invisible Storm,
about PTSD and politics. He was a soldier in the American Army. And reading through that book was life-changing for us, because we were like relating to so many things, and we're like, oh, we're not alone. We are not the only people who have experienced this and who are continuing to experience this.
And I just want to add in, it's his book, but his wife has chapters where she describes both her observations and her experience through the PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, it was so amazing to read her side, because it helped me understand the dynamic between Krista and I, and to have more compassion for Krista, because I understood that it's something that I'm going through, but it's something that we're experiencing together.
Mm-hmm.
So her words, were very powerful.
Yeah, exactly. So them sharing their story has impacted us so much in a positive way. So we're hoping that in sharing our story, hopefully will positively impact, even if one of you watching, you feel less alone, then it's been worth it for us. Even though it's raw and we don't know very much yet, and we're going to be learning throughout this whole process. And so, yeah, we'll probably make mistakes. We'll probably, be vulnerable, but to us, it's worth it if we can help somebody feel less alone. Do you want to mention at all that it's from your service, like that you are a veteran?
Yeah, I guess in case you don't know, or I'll tell you now. So I spent 15 years with the Canadian Air Force, and during my time, my experience has led to me having a PTSD. So I'm working directly with Veterans Affairs Canada, and they have amazing supports. They have so many programs. It is sometimes challenging when you're not doing well to navigate the paperwork system, but the case managers, it's like the more you talk with the case manager that gets assigned to you, the more they help you.
Mm-hmm.
And we now have had it where both Krista and I are able to talk with the case manager together. There's a whole slew of online resources, and once you get into the system, it's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are going to be going through the Veteran Affairs Canada system for rehab and all the supports that they have. So that's where we're at, and that's what we're going to be navigating together.
And I was going to say, like, if you are a veteran or family member is a veteran, whether it's in probably a lot of countries have supports, but in Canada, I'll put some links in the description of the video, just kind of like the links that we started to access to realize, okay, there are services, there are supports for this, because it has affected every area of our life.
Yeah.
And we need a lot of help.
And I'm just going to throw it out there, a statistic that I just heard. I was watching a video, and this is from a few years ago, but 800,000 American veterans are receiving PTSD specific help. And when that, like, and those are military veterans, and when that just, it just sort of dawned on me that I thought I was maybe one of a few people that are experiencing this. And I know the States has a lot more people, but that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's helped me understand that there are many people likely experiencing what I'm experiencing. So it helped me feel less alone.
Yeah, for sure. And if you are experiencing it, you're not alone. We're in the middle of it. And if you can access supports, do it. I wish we had have talked to people sooner, but we talked when we were ready, and that's okay.
Yep.
Now we have, and we're feeling less alone already. And we're feeling like we have a team of both professionals and friends and family who are willing to support us. And that just feels huge, because I've felt like so alone in this process. And there's been a lot of days when Brian's not doing well, but it means like I don't even have Brian. So it feels really good for us to be doing this. And I know like it's felt really good for you since we made the decision.
Yeah. It despite how hard it is to know that we're going to be leaving the van and putting this adventure on a pause, it felt, and I didn't even realize it, but it just felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders to know that I'm going to focus on healing.
Yeah.
And but more importantly, that I've identified, it's not about this lifestyle. It's about the fact that whether I was home and like doing things in Canada or continuing here, not addressing my health is the issue. It's not the nomadic lifestyle.
No, because this was going on before we ever started
years ago.
van life.
Yeah, years and years and years. But it's just the realization that I need to do something about it. And now that we've made that and it has finally sunk in, I'm just so excited.
Yeah. And one of the major things that both we've decided and that the healthcare professionals have told us is that I have to keep living my life, and I can't put my life on hold or make my life smaller because Brian isn't doing well. Me doing what makes me feel good and brings me joy is more beneficial to Brian than me not doing those things. So I know that I need to make sure that I'm focusing on what brings me joy and what makes me feel healthy and good, and not putting those band-aids everywhere and essentially like enabling the situation is what I was doing. And I take full responsibility for that. Like, I was doing things that I know that I shouldn't have been doing, sacrificing myself to help him. So we've both learned a lot already, and it's an ongoing process, but my goal is to be there for you as much as, well, maybe not as much as you're, maybe that's not the right word. Like, my goal is to be there for you in a healthy way and still be there for myself.
Yep. And just, thank you for all the support up until now, and thanks for continuing to be there.
You're welcome. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and next video will be in BC. Maybe I'll film some of the travel. Not sure. We'll see. But I'll see you in the next week's video.
Bye.
Bye.